Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy hump day. How are you?
Doing good, man.
You're looking good. Got the button down on today.
I do,
Really
I do.
nice.
Gotta look professional for the podcast.
Yeah,
Really, I
somebody's got
had
to
some
do it.
video interviews today with
Nice.
candidates. That's why I needed to. But yeah, I'm excited for episode. Hey, good call on the music. Do you see John's comment already?
Yeah,
Cool intro music.
man. I wish I could take credit, but that's the trio guys, Rince and them. They picked out the tunes and put it all together.
Yeah. Shout out to our sponsors, Multi-Service Fuel Card. I just saw they're hiring a social media intern this summer, by the way. Great company, been around since 1978. Longer than Will and I have been alive, probably around our combined age, somewhere around there. Maybe not quite, but yeah, great people, great rates. I know several carriers, that love them. Great people. Black Box. When are we getting rid of that Black Box sponsor?
Never. We're a legacy
kidding.
sponsor.
That's Will's company. Trio Inc. Great. They do our back end. They do all of our posts on our Two Dawgs page. Obviously, Will and I's own page are our own content, but the Two Dawgs page is, for the most part, our back end posting. HD ships.
Let's say one more thing about Trio. They do a little bit of everything. They do offshore staffing. Black Box has a few of their people. They do great work. And then again, like Matt said, they're doing all of our back end stuff, the graphics, the videos, everything you see. And the cool intro music that John commented on, that's the Trio guys. Didn't mean to interrupt you, Matt.
Yeah, no worries. HD ships, if you're looking to be an agent, I'd love to talk to you. Sales Dash CRM. I was just talking to Josh yesterday. So, I mean, Josh does a great job of getting himself out there. I just got a message or two, just the other day of someone that had seen, when Josh and I talked on his YouTube channel. His business is really growing. A lot of larger brokerages, are coming to use them. I know you use them, Will, freight specific CRM. Yeah, just really great product and even better person.
Josh is a dog, certified dog. And
100%.
we've got our banner sponsor, Task Factoring. Man, I can't say enough good things about this group based out of Kansas. They go beyond just normal factoring. They really try to educate their customers or potential customers. They've got a lot of good content out there. They're not hard to find. Very big company. If you give them a Google, they've got a lot of good content out.
Yeah, 100%. They're sponsoring the Broker Carrier Summit as well down in Fort Worth, Dallas. But yeah, great guys, great rates. Yeah, well, I'm really excited for today's guest. Yeah, Morgan has a lot of experience in recruiting. We'll get into it, but I mean, she started her time at Steam. Big into traveling, just really outgoing. A great personality. Really fun person and got a lot of knowledge on the recruiting front, the traveling front. I know Will was asking her for some advice pre-show on Colombia and the Philippines. Yeah, we're looking forward to diving into it with Morgan.
Awesome. Well, I'll bring her out on stage.
Hey,
Morgan,
guys.
how are you?
Hey, Morgan.
Hi, I'm doing good. A little bit cold, but other than that, good.
Yeah, so you're joining us from 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. So pretty cold weather conditions up there.
Yes, I just landed this afternoon, took a tiny little plane here from Stockholm. It was like one of the planes where they wheel the stairs up to you and then you get down like you're like a celebrity or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I looked around, I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of ice. And my sister was like, yeah, you're the only person I know who goes to the Arctic Circle and goes, wow, it's a lot of ice. Yeah, I'm in the most northern town in Sweden right now.
Very cool. What's the time difference there? What time is it now?
It is 10 p.m., 10, 11 p.m. to be specific.
Well, thanks for joining us so late in the day. It's going to be it's got to be an adjustment, I guess, for you traveling to different places. You always got to look at what time zone it is.
Yeah, well, I keep my computer, my entire work setup is set to Central Time, which really helps me stay organized. And when I'm recruiting, like stay on top of it with my candidates and my clients. So that never changes. And then my phone is set to whatever time zone I'm in. So to be honest, I don't really pay attention to what time it is until my alarm dings to log in for work. So I'm just like, whatever, wherever I'm at in the world. But it's cool. The cool thing about being in Europe is because of the time change, I have a full day to play with. before Central Time even wakes up. So by the time my clients and candidates are starting their days, I've already gone to museums or gone hiking or explored coffee shops or flown somewhere. I mean, today I took 2 flights and found a new hotel before I even logged in for the day. So you get a lot of your time back.
Yeah. That's what you were doing before. I mean, if you want to kind of give maybe the viewers, I know a little bit about your story, but it's a pretty cool story of how you got into logistics. And so you were doing some traveling, before and then kind of with COVID. But why don't you kind of tell, maybe give the viewers kind of a background of how you got into logistics and some of your traveling and kind of what happened?
Yeah, so I really stumbled into logistics completely by accident. So prior to COVID, I was a full-time backpacker, like a full-time traveler. I have a degree in public relations and like a background in marketing, but after I graduated from university, I had this deathly fear of cubicles. And I was like, I don't want to go to a cubicle, I will die. And so I instead took off and I was like, I'm just going to take a gap year and did a whole bunch of traveling, and that lasted up until COVID. So I went all over Asia and traveled. I traveled all over Europe. I traveled all over Central America, South America. I went to these crazy festivals. Like I went to the world's largest food fight in Spain where you throw tomatoes at each other. I went to Carnival in Brazil and like danced in the streets. I bartended in Cambodia when I ran out of money. I lived in a tent in Alaska for like 6 months. Like I just wandered. And then COVID obviously put an end to that, not only because of the world shutting down, but my primary source of income was restaurant work, which was done. And I was like, okay, I need a job. Who's hiring? And logistics companies were hiring. So I got hired at Steam on the sales floor. I was a drayage broker working on containers. And then I moved into the recruitment side. And it's kind of cliche to say the rest is history, but like seriously, for me, the rest is history. I still work in recruitment. I love it. And I work for a fully remote company now. So I was able to kind of combine those two things. And now I work from anywhere and everywhere in the world as long as there's Wi-Fi.
How did that go initially getting into recruiting? Was that something you thought you would like going from, the drayage broker side or what kind of led into that getting into recruiting?
I knew I would like it. I knew it would be a good fit for me. I love people. I'm really personable. I have very, very thick skin. So I take nothing personally ever. It's really hard to offend me. But there was a huge learning curve. I thought it was going to be easier than it was. And it wasn't. It was very hard. I made a lot of mistakes. I'll never forget. I made the mistake very early on of emailing, like trying to source people from our competitors from their work emails. Like it was just the dumbest, like emailing people out of brokers. It was I made a lot of really dumb mistakes.
That's how you learn though, right? Did you have anyone reply back to you and be like, why are you emailing me at my brokerage email?
I got a call from the president of the company who told me to stop now and ask the president of my company what they were doing, having someone so green on their team. But that's how you learn. And you have to like have those experiences and kind of laugh at them and remember them and grow from them. And I've been in recruiting for several years now, and I've made a lot more mistakes, but I've also found a lot of success.
Yeah, 100%. You were doing all types of roles at Steam, right? I mean, you guys were doing sales roles, accounting roles. You had kind of and you were having to go all over the country since Steam has offices everywhere, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I visited all of their offices and I was their talent acquisition manager. So I was responsible and my team for any open role company-wide, which meant that we did everything. We did accounting roles, we did operations roles, we did high-level branch manager roles, we did entry-level sales roles. And it really was a good way to learn the industry and get exposure to what a lot of different people have to do. And also kind of learn like a brokerage from the bottom up, like what makes a brokerage successful? What kind of people does a brokerage need in order to be successful? And yeah, it was really fun.
I remember you got to experience
in the comments. Dog mentality, Morgan, go Mo. So I got to ask. So do you think that? Because I don't know much about recruiting or staffing, but I have to think. So all this travel, meeting all these different people, like ultimately that's what it is. It's people, right? So you have that. Does that help you when you're connecting or trying to sources? You said you knew that you'd be good at it. Do you think that plays a large part in it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have been to over 50 countries across the world, and I've worked in several countries, and I have interacted with people from all over the world and all different cultures. And so I have a very open personality where, like I said, I don't get offended. I don't get offended because I'm not easily offended, but I also don't get offended because I understand people come from different backgrounds. Like I understand that a cultural norm in Southeast Asia is completely different from a cultural norm in Central Europe, which is completely different from a cultural norm in South America. And so I approach all of my interactions with people just from like a genuine, like, I want to get to know you. I want to learn about you. I want to like see if this could be a good fit. I'll be honest with you. And I think having that travel background has helped. And I also think Steam was my first corporate job ever. And I was almost 30 when I started there. And so I think having that background of not being professional and not being in a corporate environment, I didn't come into the role with any predetermined rules. I didn't come in with like, this is what it means to be professional. And that helped me on LinkedIn as well. Like when I started posting on LinkedIn, I was like, I guess I'll just say whatever I want. And it worked. So I think it's helped me immensely. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. So I think that's huge. Not to get off topic, but just with brand or connecting with people, just being authentic, right? With a lot of the cookie cutter like corporate statements, at least for like marketing everything, it's just kind of like nobody really cares. But if and when it feels real, genuine, people connect. And I mean, I think that's why one of the reasons why you kind of blown up on LinkedIn, because people relate to you. Got a question from Chris. I'm not sure why he's asking, but are you left-handed?
Yeah, I am actually.
I don't know why you asked that.
Chris, we need to know why.
Yeah, need another follow-up comment there.
You were in Minnesota too, if I remember correctly, right? You got to experience, so the Arctic must not be too bad for you if you spent some time at the Steam office in Minnesota. Shout out to those guys, some cool guys.
I know. Shout out to all my like Minnesota people. Like, yeah, I had a really fun time. So Steam, they really invested in me. And that, like, to this day, they're a company I will always believe in. You will never hear me say a bad thing about them because they gave me so many chances to grow and learn. And one of those opportunities was a chance to actually go to Minnesota and live there and be in that office and get to learn more of like the HR side and what it meant to be a human resources representative and not just a recruiter. And that was really cool because that was an office I'd interacted with virtually, but to actually go there and work with them and sit with them side by side, all of those people became real to me in a way that they just couldn't through a screen. And yeah, I like Minnesota. Malcolm Yard, the chicken there. Oh my God, they have the best Korean fried chicken I've ever had in my life in Malcolm's Yard.
Can you tell Will it's not a small city? Will
I don't think it's a small city. I just like to give you hell for it because it's funny. Like I understand it's a big city, but to say that Minnesota has great fried chicken, that's surprising to me. We have really good fried chicken in the South. Matt, I'll take you to get some when you're in town. You've got some supporters, Lefties Unite, Caroline Kelly says, and then Chris has a follow-up. Females in sales role are a lot of times left-handed. Black Box just got a recruiting cheat code. LOL. I'm still not certain where he's going with this.
It's really interesting.
I see a lot of lefties in sales and brokers as a whole too. I'm not certain that we have any left-handed people at Black Box. Maybe we need to get some.
Aren't left-handed people generally speaking more creative? Right?
That would make sense. I'm not sure, but I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, I guess. Maybe Chris has some more insight. I'm not sure.
So Chris, we need to connect on LinkedIn. I need to learn more about this.
Oh, sure. I will. But speaking of Steam, we just got a Steam office. I say we. There's one that opened up in Birmingham not too long ago. It seems like they've really been growing rapidly. I just hear good things about them. Not funny story, but somebody actually drove a car into their building on accident. And they put up a guardrail, but it seems like they're growing pretty rapidly all across the country. Good for them.
Yeah, they are. And there's so many really good people there. I still like have a lot of really good friends from there, which is really cool. And like, I don't know, they're just good people. And like, that's the hardest thing about being a digital nomad and being fully remote is that you kind of lose your people a little bit, especially not going to the office and seeing them every day. Cause that was like one of the best parts of my job was hanging out with all of my work friends.
Yeah. How was that adjustment? I mean, were you expecting to go back into recruiting? Because you, when you left Steam, you were doing just some more traveling. Was it, on your radar, like, hey, I'm going to take a break and get back into a different side of recruiting? Or how did that come about to, kind of land a journey?
So Will and I had connected through LinkedIn. And I had always thought his content was really good. I'm referring to Will Jenkins, the founder of Journey. And I always thought his content was good. I always thought he seemed so sharp. And I like to be around people I can learn from, like people who are going to make me better. And so we had talked off and on a couple times. And he told me that he was thinking about starting a company. And I was like, that's cool. Like, what do you want to do? And he was like, oh, I think I want to be like recruiting. And I was like, I'm out. I need a break from recruiting. Like I'm going to Europe. Like I went to Europe with my sister and it was really cool. We sailed around Croatia. We rented a car and drove through Montenegro and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And like, I just like stayed off of LinkedIn and just did nothing. I didn't even think about job searching for like 6 months. It was great. And Will and I just stayed in touch and he kept me updated as he built the business. And we talked about like ideas and what he was working on. And just again, like I was just so impressed by him. And he's such a smart, sharp businessman. And he's also just a really good human. And I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be in recruitment and I'm going to work with someone and I'm going to build something, this is a person I can stand next to. Like this is a company I can get behind. And I still feel that way. Like to this day, I'm a year in and agency recruiting is really hard. That's something that I will not sugarcoat. Like it's completely different than what I was doing at Steam.
How big of an adjustment was that? Because like at Steam, you probably know their hiring processes after a while, but in your role now you have, 10, 20, however many different companies it's a lot probably. Is that kind of why you would say it's more, I would agree with you, but that's why it would be more difficult?
Yeah, it's more difficult. Your knowledge is a little bit more superficial. Like you said, like at Steam, I knew my hiring managers. I knew their kids' names. I knew who they were as people. I knew the company. I knew our brand inside and out. I knew everything about what that person was going to be doing. And I could really sell people on the role in the company. And I've had to completely adjust my style to working with multiple companies and having a more limited knowledge of things and having to talk to people in more general terms. And also, I just think independent recruiters, and like, this, Matt, you're a recruiter, like the industry itself has a bad reputation and there's good people in it like us who are like working against it and like proving like, hey, recruiters are really nice people. We will help you. We'll be honest with you. But it's a different mindset and it's a different style.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I'm sure you talked about earlier of having to have, thick skin. I'm sure, on your side of the agency side of recruiting, you probably have to have more, thick skin than probably even maybe more at Steam, I would imagine or guess, but.
Yeah, a little bit. Luckily, I am very lucky that my LinkedIn brand really helps me. Generally speaking, when I send a message to someone, a lot of the times they're familiar with me, which is really nice. And if they're not, and they accept my connection request and they start seeing my content and then they receive a message from me, they're like, okay, like she's a real person. She's a real human. Like she's in the freaking Arctic Circle. Like, let me at least find out what's going on here. So my experience, I think, has been a lot better than most, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky I get some of that as well. I think it does help tremendously. I guess, what's kind of been your favorite part so far about, the transition or what are you kind of in? Is it the travel and being able to go around or just the, being able to work on different roles or what have you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I would say all of it. Like I love being remote. Like I love traveling. I mean, so far this year, I have worked from a tiny house in the Arizona desert, which is really fun. I've worked from a dry cabin, which means it has no running water. I lived in a cabin without running water in Alaska for months and worked from there, which is really cool. I rented a rooftop penthouse in Tallinn, Estonia, and I worked from there. I have been able to visit family across the U.S. and work from there. Like I said, I'm in the Arctic Circle right now. I'm going to a hotel made entirely of ice this weekend and working from there. And
that's cool.
I have been able to do all of that, which is cool. And then also, like for me, I am an extremely creative person and I have the attention span of a squirrel. So being able to work on different roles and be able to like fill something, like have a project be done, then move on to the next one that's completely different. Like my only issue at Steam is there were times where I felt like I was on a hamster wheel because I would like I would get everything done. I would be like, we're good, we're staffed up. And then I would have to hire for the exact same roles again 2 weeks later. And it's not like that when you're an agency. You constantly have new fun projects to work on.
Yeah, sounds like a good fit. We got another comment from John. He says, I could tell from our discussions that you were genuine and really want to know about the roles you're promoting. So shout out John for tuning in. The support.
Shout out John. John's a great guy.
John's a really good guy.
Can you give us
knowledge?
Yeah, he's tuned in a good bit. We always appreciate his comments. Very insightful. I got to ask though. I know you've been to 50 different countries, all these different places. Are you able to give us like a top 5 places?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's definitely some that come to mind.
Okay.
Top 5. If I'm literally just like, this is what's in my brain right now.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland. The Highlands are incredible.
Is this in order? Like that's number 1, or is it just no order?
That's the first one. Yeah, it's the first one that pops up. India. It's colorful. It's wild, and it's like Alaska in that you cannot fathom how large of a place this is until you go there. India's like that. Like when I was in India, all in the same trip, I went to the desert and went camping on a camel. Like I literally loaded up my supplies on a camel and rode my camel into the desert and camped out there. I also went all the way down and went to the most beautiful sand beaches. Like it's just an incredible place. So India, super cool, super colorful. Bosnia and Herzegovina, that place, like if there's magic in the world, it's there. It's really cool. Nicaragua, because Nicaragua is what Costa Rica was before everyone discovered it. So if you want to go to Costa Rica but have an authentic experience, go to Nicaragua. Yeah. And then probably 5th, and this is such a cliche, but New Zealand, because it's just really cool there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to clip that in.
Minnesota didn't make the list, Will. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Shocker. Oh, no. Yeah. Didn't mean it, man. I'm sure Minnesota is a great place. I was in the Minnesota airport a couple weeks ago. Lovely airport. We got some Chipotle. It was in and out.
Yeah.
It is a nice airport. Well, I guess since we haven't really dived into this at all, but I obviously have a lot of knowledge on recruiting from the agency side. I'm sure there's some people, listening out there. By the way, you're a popular guest. I don't think we've ever had 24 people in here at one time all watching, but I'm sure there's some people that are, maybe looking for, jobs or down the line. What are some advice or maybe mistakes that you see from, job seekers, out there?
Yeah, well, this is one I talk about all the time, but I think that a lot of people really struggle with their resume. And I can see why. They're hard to write. What do you leave on there? What do you leave off? Should you customize it? Like resumes, like you sit down, you're staring at this blank piece of paper and you're overwhelmed. Like I totally get it. But as a recruiter, transparently, I would have to say I see more bad resumes than good. And it's a bad resume, in my opinion, is a resume that does not clearly define what you've done in past roles and what your skills are. So like if I read a resume and I'm like, okay, is this person an account manager? Did they sell? What were they on the carrier side? What did this person do? And I'm sure you get that too.
No, it's hard. Some people have these crazy titles in logistics that I have no idea if they're a carrier sales rep, a customer rep, cradle to grave. Like it'll say customer success, for example, is completely different at one company than another. And even in the tech industry, it's very difficult sometimes.
Yes. And then like, even in the bullet points, like, I don't know, like, okay, so you've got the company name, but I don't really know what this company does. So what were you selling? You were selling, but what were you selling? Who were you selling it to? Like, I feel like resumes, a lot of times I'm confused, and I know that is probably bad and too honest, but a good resume should just be super, super clear and make it easy for the other person to be like, yep, I know what this person did. I know what they're capable of, and I know they're a good fit. And resumes too often don't do that.
Yeah. Do you get people who just blindly send the resume without like a message? Like what's kind of your thoughts on that? Cause I know it's different for your role. Like for me, recruiting, I don't really even look too much at resumes. But I know for W-2 roles, it's, really important to have a good resume. But I mean, you get some people who just, think because you're in recruiting, they're just going to send over a resume without any notes and think you're going to find them a job. Or what's the best way do you think to approach a third party recruiter?
Yeah, I would include some kind of small blurb about why you're coming to them and what you're looking for. Just be like, hey, I see you're a recruiter. I see you work on supply chain and freight roles. I'm an experienced whatever. I'm looking for a new role because I've been laid off, or just because I'm curious what's out there, whatever. Like, or I just want to learn more about what you're working on. Here's my resume. Like, if you've got time for a call or you think it's worth discussing more, like, please let me know. Just like a little small blurb would help. Because sometimes like people just like send me a resume and I'm like, okay, dude, like, what do you want?
I got a question from Chris here. He says, when you're sourcing a candidate, how much stock do you put into a bad format resume versus good format resume?
It depends, Chris. Honestly, if I receive a super high volume of resumes for a role, then I will read each of them and I'll be like, okay, I think these are the ones, because I only have so many hours in a day. Like, I spend an average of 30 minutes to an hour on the phone with all of my candidates, which means that, like, realistically speaking, like, if I'm going to get other things done, I max out at 6 calls a day. So like, that means like of this stack, like I can talk to 6 of you today. So the good formats are always going to get priority because of like the simple time constraints that I'm working with. And also it depends on like whether or not like I think it's worth learning more. And I'm not trying to be hurtful. I know that looking for a job is really hard. And I know it's exhausting. And I know that job seekers are burned out. I get that. But like from a recruiter's point of view, like if I've got a stack of 75, 80 resumes I'm going through, and half of them are not super clear or don't have contact information, or I can't tell exactly what the person did, like I'm going to prioritize the ones that are clear, easy to read, and are very obviously a good fit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that made a lot of sense. We got a comment from John. I've had some awful titles over the years. Most of the time, I was allowed to change them to where I really did. So I want to ask, I guess, when both of you, I guess, but mainly you, Morgan, because I guess you're doing some different positions. How often do you speak to, I don't know if you call them prospects, but potential candidates, right? And maybe they have just a lack of perspective on maybe their market value. Do you ever get people that want ABC, but really you look at the resume or talk to them and it's, it doesn't add up? Do you experience a lot of that? Or, I mean, how are you going about it? Are you talking to the candidate first and seeing what they're looking for and trying to match it? Or are you going to get the job and then try to match candidates? Or do you do both?
It's a mixture of both. Yeah. So obviously I'm a recruiter. I have been hired by my clients to find them specific things. So, and they're the ones who pay me. So I mean, I don't have rent to pay. I'm homeless, but I have bills to pay like anyone else. You know what I mean? So I have to make sure that at the end of the day, I'm getting paid. So obviously you have to always keep it in mind what the client wants and what their budget is. That being said, I really like to take a people first approach, because at the end of the day, the people you're talking to are the ones that are going to have to show up to that job every day. They're going to have to log in. They're going to be dealing with that manager. They're going to have to do that and spend years of their life doing it. So I want to make sure it's a good fit for the people. So my style is generally speaking like, okay, tell me what you're looking for. Tell me what you want. Tell me what is going to really fill your cup and make you feel excited. Tell me what pain points you're having right now. And then I will tell you what I have. We'll see if we can meet in the middle. If it's worth a further conversation, we'll keep it going. If it's not a good fit for whatever reason, that's totally fine. I'm always super open about like salaries and what the client wants. But at the end of the day, I'm not the person hiring for this job. So if you want a base salary of X amount of dollars and my client's only willing to pay this, there's nothing I can do for you. And you do see that, going back to the original question, like you do see candidates who have a number in mind that is going to be harder to find because of their years of experience and because of like their previous roles. Like it's a little bit misaligned.
How often do you run into this too on the W-2 side? Because I've talked to some recruiting friends on the agent recruiting. I don't run into this too often because if someone doesn't trust their sales ability or is worried about their relationships, they're not going to go to a straight commission role. But I've talked to some friends who own brokerages and they've had a problem. This person says they have done $100,000 in profit a month for the last 3 years, or they have a 5 million, say whatever number, and they demand this high salary. And then they come in and, 60 days later, they're gone, which can often hurt the recruiting firm too, if there's a 90 day clause. But being able to like weave through, who is legitimate and what they're saying and who's not. Was that new to you? Because I know Steam they're hiring a lot more people, without experience, with college, just graduated college. But on your role now, I'm imagining a lot of them, they're wanting, not necessarily a book of business, maybe some, but at least like a proven track record. So I guess maybe kind of talk about how you deal with that.
Yeah, it was a big learning curve for me. I mean, at Steam, I specialized in entry-level green talent. Like we needed brokers. We had a great training program. So I was like going to colleges and I was like, oh, you're a really talented like server at this restaurant. Let me give you my card. Like I was true recruiting was a small part of what I did. And so now that I'm on the other side of it and I'm talking to experienced reps all day, every day, I had a huge learning curve of like realizing like, A, like what a fair market base salary is for a seller, and B, what a true seller looks like. Because like you said, like a true seller who has good relationships and is confident in their sales ability, they don't care what the base is. They care what the commission looks like. So to me, if somebody is asking me like, what's the commission plan? What's the earning potential? My ears always perk up. I'm like, all right, yes. Versus somebody who's like, yeah, like I need $100,000 base salary if I'm going to make a move. I'm just like, okay, why is that? Is your book not going to come, or do you not want to start over? Like but that to me is always actually a little bit of a red flag when it comes to sellers.
I like that you mentioned that because it seems like, I don't know, after speaking to people for a while, you kind of pick up on who really isn't, especially in the brokerage world. It seems like a lot of people throw out lofty numbers. And then when you really get to talk to them, that, the guy that actually really knows that, like, I did this much at this percentage over this quarter, like you can tell. Or then, if they want the big base and then the low commission, but they're supposed to be brought on as a hunter. I look at it like the relationship with their customers, like 1 to 10. 1, you're on a load list BCC, or like 10, you're getting invited to Christmas dinner. Pick up your phone, text your customer, let's see what they say. You can really gauge it. Look at the conversations, because not unfortunately, it just kind of is what it is. Most books of business aren't as transferable as people think that they are. If you leave them with skin in the game and they're confident, they want to prove it. There's just people that we want at Black Box, but you get somebody with all this experience and they want this huge salary and they're not that worried about the commission. It's like, oh, we don't really want you on the team. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and you got to meet in the middle. People have to pay their bills. They have to pay their rent. The ramp period, like people have to be able to live during the ramp up period. Like it doesn't always transfer. It takes time to onboard customers. Like it takes time to build a book. Like you have to be respectful of that. So you have to meet in the middle for sure. But also, like when people come in and they're demanding these big base salaries, I'm like, okay, but this is a sales role.
Some of them are, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, you do need a livable wage in that regard, which is why, I tell some people being an agent might not be a good fit for you. But I was curious too, because I know like when I made the move to an agent program, one company, some of these companies want concrete proof of what you did too. I personally, don't do that. I just kind of get a gauge from talking to them. But are you seeing that in your end too, where, companies, they want, some type of proof for the same reason we're talking about is, they don't want to waste a bunch of time, bring someone in and nothing happens, where, some of these things can be proven.
No, I'm not saying that. I actually, what I really love about the clients we work with is like, they're not asking for proof, but they've stepped up their interview game. So they're asking more specific questions. They're doing deeper dives into like the salespeople they talk to, and they're able to really weed out the non-sellers because they're doing a really good job interviewing, which I really love. Because like, if you people proof from people, that's really stressful. Like, how are you going to prove it? But you can ask them like
some
questions.
Data concerns there too. I mean, I guess, with your commission checks, but I think you made a great point there. What are some good questions maybe they're asking to, delve into? Obviously I have some ideas, but I'm just kind of curious from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one I try to make sure I always ask is just as simple, like, tell me the story of the last 2 customers you onboarded. I don't need their names. I'm always very clear. Like, I don't need names. I'm not here to steal your business, but like, how'd you find them? Like, how did you get them to agree to working with you? Like, how long did it take to onboard them? Like, how many calls, emails, like what finally changed? And like, if a person can tell you a really good story right off the bat, they're like, oh yeah, so like I've been talking to this, grill company for the last year, and last week they had a fall off and they called me for this lane, and like I finally got in and now we're doing this. Or like, if people right off the bat can start talking to you, or if they tell you, they're like, oh well, the biggest customer I landed, I'm like, I didn't ask that. I asked about the last customer you landed. So that is one. And then I think just asking salespeople like point blank, like, why do you think your customers work with you over anyone else? A lot of them are going to tell you a generic answer, but the really good ones will have specific answers. And like, I mean, like Matt, you and I can speak to that from recruiting. Like, why do candidates work with us over other people, other firms?
Yeah, no, you make a very good point. Yeah, no, I think in this market too, I mean, it's not an easy job market. I mean, you see, I don't know, sometimes it can be kind of, I have more recruiters in my LinkedIn feed now than I used to, but you see some kind of doomsday, posts from recruiters in other industries and candidates, and it's not the easiest market to get a job. It's definitely an employer's. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, but I would say it's definitely probably an employer's market right now.
It is, and it's really, really hard for job seekers. Like I mean, it's especially with the rise of AI and automation. Like they're competing with like hundreds, thousands of other applicants. It's hard to stand out. It's hard to know like what one company likes on a resume, the other doesn't, and it's very difficult out there.
So would you say the majority of the jobs that you do source are sales oriented as opposed to operations? So the way I see it really with that, you have hunters and farmers, right? And we're talking about this data, and I like that y'all went into the questions because it's almost as if the data is misleading, right? You could have all these sales revenue, but the account could have been passed to you, right? And you might be a hell of a farmer, but you can't hunt. But you mostly see, because I just think about from our perspective, or my perspective sitting here, it's just, we want sales guys ultimately. We feel like we can build around them. And I feel like everybody wants the sales guys. Is that what you see?
Yeah, right now. I mean, the market, we're in a down market. It's been a down market for a really long time. And brokerages are really struggling. So they want people who can bring in revenue. Like they want people who can help the company grow. So yeah, like a lot of people want sellers. We're lucky we get a good mix of other roles as well. I'm working on a recruitment role right now. That's super fun. So we have a good mix of clients, which kind of helps to avoid burnout on our end. But yes, I would say overall general trend is people want people who can bring in revenue, just because the market's so down. It's bad.
That had to be interesting for you too. I just thought of it, but I mean, all sales roles. I mean, at Steam, I'm quite familiar because I worked for a company with a similar model, cradle to grave, and pod model. But I'm guessing, when you got into this role, you're hiring, especially with Chicago model. I'm guessing, with Will being from Chicago and such Chicago presence, you probably have a lot of Chicago brokerages. You're probably hiring more customer sales reps would have different duties than a cradle to grave rep you're hiring at Steam. So that had to be interesting as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it took me a long time to build up my network to accommodate to that, because when you're just sourcing and reaching out to people, the best way to stand out is to connect with people and like let them see your reel first. And it took me a while to like get my network to the point where I was getting good traction. So it was a big change. But the nice thing is like once you start building relationships with sellers, you might not have a job for them right off the bat, but if you have a good conversation and you maintain that relationship, as things open, eventually you have a really healthy pipeline. So it just comes with time. But yeah, it's been a big change.
Have you ever had people convert over to like, how often do you see that where you have someone as a cradle to grave rep who maybe just tired of dealing with carriers and they want to be a customer rep, or cradle to grave rep who maybe realizes that, sales isn't his thing and wants to go to an operation? Or how often are you seeing people, on the candidate, maybe just since it is such a tough market too, switching jobs? Are you seeing that much? Or?
Yeah, you do. Because if you're going to be a successful recruiter, you have to understand if people are going to move jobs, it has to be because of some kind of pain point that's being solved. I mean, it's the same as selling anything else. It's the same as selling freight. Like if a shipper is going to sign with you, you have to solve a pain point. So as a recruiter, you have to be like, okay, like what is hard about your job now that I can maybe help you find a solution for? Like, are you cradle to grave and you're maxed out because you have to book all your loads? Or are you carrier rep and you want to have more control over you're a customer rep, you have more control over the carriers you work with? Like what are you missing in your job right now? And let me see if anything I have open is going to be a good fit. So yeah, I actually see that all the time.
I feel like that's a great way to look at it too. I mean, that's got to be pretty fulfilling, right? If and when you look at it like this is a human being, I'm solving something for them, making their life better. Matt, I know that you feel the same way with the opportunities that you provide to your people. So pretty cool, pretty wholesome.
Yeah, that must be a fun part about having different roles too. You can kind of mix and match based on what someone's personality or what they're looking for a lot. I don't know, make it fun in that regard, as opposed to maybe the there's pros and cons to both, obviously, but a different change of pace from what you were doing with Steam.
Yeah, and like the most fun part of it is when you talk to someone, you're like, okay, I don't have anything, I'm sorry. But then like 3 months later, we get a new client, we get a new role, and I'm like, yo, so-and-so, it's me. I got it. And then you can be like, look, I have this opportunity. You wanted a leadership role? One just open. Let's talk about it. Like, that's like the best part of it is when like maybe you don't have something, be in a great conversation with someone and then something new opens and you're like, I got you.
Have you guys done any, I don't know, maybe this isn't a good question to ask, but have you guys done any, tech roles too? Or are you guys mainly, or asset side of brokerage? Or are you guys mainly doing 3PL traditional brokerages?
The majority of what we work on is 3PL traditional, but we've done everything, which has been really cool. And that's been a big learning experience for me. Like we've done tech roles, we've done freight tech roles, we've done, I had one more that I completely forgot, asset-based. Like we've done a little bit we don't do a lot of those, but we do get those roles and they're really fun to work on.
Yeah, it's a total different world. I talked to some friends in freight tech, and I briefly thought about going into freight tech, and I interviewed with one company. In the interview process, I know because I interviewed at Seam and another company. The interview process for freight tech roles is much different, than traditional brokerage or sales roles, at least in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and when we get those roles, then I start talking to people about them. If we don't always know the process, but if I know it, I'm always like, all right, my friend, if this is something you want to pursue, it's going to be 5 interviews. It's going to be this. It's going to be a presentation. Like there's so much more that goes into it. And usually as long as you let people know that, so they can go in eyes wide open, then it goes okay. But it's a much longer process than just like a brokerage role.
Yeah, I think that's cool you said about setting expectations because, I had no idea about that. When I briefly, and I decided, tech wasn't going to really be for me, I don't think, but I had no idea like the interview process you described that it was like that. So that's kind of cool that you let people know. And I think that's kind of maybe why some candidates I see on candidates, I don't know, some candidates on LinkedIn are just kind of a little negative I see in other industries, but I mean, there are things that recruiters can do better to make it easier for the candidates. And I think you hit on a good one is kind of, preparing them for, hey, it's going to be a 2 interview process. You'll know XYZ then, or just kind of what goes into it.
Yeah. And we don't always have that information, but I think if you do, it's really important to share it and let people know. So that way, at least people know. They're like, all right, I've done this hurdle. Let's hear about the next one. Versus like, if you don't warn them by interview 4, they're just have interview fatigue. Like that's such a real thing. So managing expectations is a huge part of what I do. And as well as just like straight up transparency and honesty. I've found a lot of success with that as well.
I think that's the only sustainable way to do it, right? If you're comparing company with person, I mean, if you tell both sides something that's not entirely true and transparent, they're going to find out it's not going to work out, and then you lose the future business. It just seems like the only way that it would work, in my opinion. We look at it, so I think it's the right approach. But I don't know anything about staffing, but I appreciate the way you guys do it.
A little bit. Well, you hire for Black Box. You guys have 50 employees, so
not quite 50, but yes, I do. So I can relate to some of the resume stuff and what you guys are discussing. But I guess it's a little bit different when it's it's my company and I'm, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess we haven't really talked about this. I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but I mean, how big has LinkedIn been for you in the recruiting? I know you were talking earlier about how people know who you are. Obviously your posts, you went viral. I've still never managed to go viral. That's pretty, like, I think you had like close to 1 million impressions or several 100,000. You've had a couple posts like that with your travel and, just kind of showing, your true self. Maybe kind of touch on, for anyone, watching, kind of how important kind of having a LinkedIn brand is? Because from what you said, it sounds like it's helped you a lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't even like know how to say this without sounding like an asshole, but yeah, my highest performing post ever got over 20 million impressions.
Wow.
And it was trending in like the Middle East, and like LinkedIn News Europe featured it, and like LinkedIn News was like put me on their banner. It was also really overwhelming because it was really cool, but like the dark side of that was that like a lot of like internet trolls came out of like whatever caves they live in, and like I got like nasty messages about everything from my like appearance and like my nose ring and my tattoos to like how I live my life to like my age and the fact that I'm single and not married. Like it was like crazy. Like it was so scary. It was the first time in my life I've ever considered getting off the internet because it was so overwhelming.
How do you manage your inbox from all that with all the different recruiting and all the people from the post? Your inbox must have been taking days to get through.
Well, I'm down to my last 1,300 connection requests. So I'm like I chip away at it like a little bit every week. But yeah, it took me hours to get through everything, like just hours. But so much good came from it too, like so much good. But yeah, so for as far as LinkedIn goes, I have a really good following there. I have about 34,000 followers on there right now. And aside from a few viral posts, like none as big as that one, but all some other really large ones that have gotten several million impressions. It's all been organic. It's all just been like me going on LinkedIn and talking about whatever feels real to me that day. And I only ever talk about 3 things. I talk about like recruitment, like resumes, interview tips, what I'm working on. Talk about travel because obviously that's something I really care about and passionate about. And I talk about thrifting because I'm like a weird little hippie chick who loves Goodwill. So those are my 3 things. And I have built this audience of people who that also resonates with. And I've made a bunch of friends from it, and I bring in a lot of candidates from it. And it's been a really positive thing. And I just like, if people ask me about LinkedIn, the only thing I can tell them is to be yourself. And like, Matt, this has worked for you. Like, be yourself, be real, talk about the things you care about and forget the rest. Like, you're never going to see me on there posting sales tips. I don't know how to sell. I don't care how to sell. You're going to see me talking about like the cool thing I found at the thrift store and the trip I booked and what I think should go on a resume. So the things I know about and care about. So just be yourself, be authentic, and the audience will follow.
100%. The key to LinkedIn is just being authentic.
John's always dropping some insightful comments, but yeah, that's super cool. I didn't even know it was 20 million. I think you probably have the most. I thought Tim Dooner, if you're listening, had the most impressions on LinkedIn, but I think you're number 1 just from that post alone.
It's like, I mean, you guys, for me to be a dirty hippie traveling, like backpacking nomad, I literally cut my own hair in the bathroom of whatever hotel I'm in to like have this online presence is so surreal. Like I did not even like I said, I cannot even emphasize. I didn't even get my first corporate job until I was almost 30. Like it was just this whole life I have built is something I'm really grateful for, but also something I'm totally in awe of because I never expected this to happen to me. But it's really cool.
Yeah, you have a very unique, cool story. Well, we appreciate you coming on. It was really fun, and yeah, you were obviously, based on the comments, the viewer count, you're obviously a very popular guest. So I think our audience was happy we had you on as well.
Well, thank you for having me, you guys. I really appreciate it. I was super excited when you reached out, man. I was like, oh my God, yes, I would love that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Morgan. We really enjoyed having you.
Yeah, enjoy the Arctic.
I will.
All right. Thanks, Morgan.
All right. Episode 30.
That was great. That was you can tell she's a really good recruiter. Just, I mean, her personality brightens up a room. And I don't say those words, lightly, but you can tell she's a very good recruiter.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can tell the connection she has with people in general. So has a very good tone too, easy to speak to. So yeah, great guest. And I'm about to go back and listen to those travel tips, make myself a list of places I want to go. Her top 5.
Have you gotten your passport yet renewed?
No. I will at some point.
You've been telling me you're going to do that for like 3 weeks. How are we going to go on this trip if neither one of us has a passport that's active?
I've got stuff going on. I'll renew it. I'll renew it tomorrow. All right. Before we wrap up, final shout out to our sponsors. Multi-Service Fuel Card, been around since what, 1978? Fact check me.
Yeah, 1978.
Great fuel discounts. They do a lot more for the drivers as well. Got some cool technology. Great group. Black Box Logistics, my company. If you're interested in a W-2 broker role in Birmingham, Alabama, let me know. Trio Inc., they do offshoring in the Philippines. They also do all of our back-end stuff, so all the cool graphics, posts, videos. That's them. I'll let you do HD.
HD Ships, you're looking to be an agent. Love to talk to you. We're based out in Reno. Yeah, great company. I enjoy working for them. Sales Dash, Will uses them. If you're over in Tech Innovations right now, Josh is down there in Florida. He won the I don't think you'll mind me sharing this. He won the golf tournament down there. He's a very good golfer too.
Good for Josh. Good.
No, say brought to you by Taft's, our banner sponsor. Great rates, great people. They're sponsoring the Broker Carrier Summit. If you're looking for so many businesses that should be factoring, in my opinion, that don't on the trucking side, and you're seeing some people go out of business. It's great people to reach out to.
100%. And Matt will be at the Broker Carrier Summit. So if you see him, say hey to him.
Sounds good. And I'll be in Birmingham after that.
Yep, the Magic City.
Yeah, that'll be a fun time. When are we going to institute this dating segment? By the way, we'll have to get on that by next week.
Oh man, that's crazy. Somebody's at my door. I gotta head out. I'll do it for episode 30.
All right, I'll see ya.